there's two things that I want to talk about today, and that is the student's responsibility, and parents, you as well, and the educator, the teacher's responsibility. So I've got a couple tips that I want to share. And as always, I'd love to see your thoughts and hear your thoughts. So please add them to the comments below. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that every time I upload a new video, you'll be the first to know. So the question is, what can I do with a modified schedule with learners who have been disengaged for several months at this point? Not just the ordinary summer break that you have to kind of deal with, but to the extent that the last time that they had formalized classes for a lot of students were like March-ish, early March. So April, May, June, July, August, September, a lot have been away, will have been away for about 6 months, somewhere there about before school starts. And so as I've talked to some friends about kind of what happened with their children once the pandemic hit and how their schools handled it and what they thought about their teachers' response and their kids, these were some of the things that I heard. I heard lack of consistency. So if the class was at 9:30 during the school year, why wouldn't the class be 9:30 during the pandemic? So I know one of my friends was a little perplexed at the fact that her son logged into a class at 8 p.m. in the evening. And I get that, you know, again, Grace, that everybody was trying to figure it out, but consistency is key in all areas. So, and the same is true for my daughter. There would be times where she would roll up for 8 o'clock class. Sometimes that she would not roll up for the 8 o'clock class, and then times that the 8 o'clock class became an 8 a.m. class, became a 1 p.m. class. And, you know, as she also worked, so she was trying to, in her job, continue throughout the pandemic. So she was trying to figure out like a school schedule, a work schedule, and with school not being consistent, it was challenging for her to do that. That was one thing. I know one other person I talked to was elated. I mean, her daughter is younger. Her daughter is like in, I think, either middle school or elementary school, but you know, they were very consistent. They did a lot of hands-on activities. They even did gym during the pandemic, which I was impressed by. And so she talked about how she would have to log on and they would do gym together. And even at the last day, like when you used to have field day when you were younger, I don't know if kids do it now, but up through my daughter's elementary days, they had like field day where you do outside activities together, and they would take their computer out, and her daughter did field day in the final lunch with her entire class at her home with her laptop. I thought that was very, very cute. I just thought I would take a little bit of time and talk about some things that I do as a learning and development consultant when I facilitate classes, because I think that I know that while our learners are different, you still have to provide meaningful and engaging and personalized experiences for your learners. And I think if you do that, we'll be better we'll be better prepared to move forward and to provide this modified experience and still give our learners what they need in the process. So, and I'll include a checklist in the description below as well that you can download with just some of these ideas. And, you know, maybe they'll work for you and maybe they won't, but I think it's also important to think outside of the box sometimes. And if you've been used to teaching, if you are a 20-year, a 15-year, 20, 25, 30-year teacher, and you've been doing things a certain way, and you've already written your lesson plans, and all you do is tweak them or refresh them as times change and times move on, this may be a very challenging thing for you to do. If you have a tech specialist in your building who comes in and does all your technology for you, you've never had to do that. So you've never had to set up, online learning other than putting your grades in a progress book and things of that nature, this may be challenging for you. So I certainly hope that your districts are looking at getting you some additional training, some additional tools in your toolbox, so that you can pull them out throughout this year to keep your learners engaged and to make sure that you're still hitting those high standards that you're accustomed to, and that your kids are still walking away having met the objectives of the course in your time together. So my first tip is use blended teaching strategies. And I know we all have different teaching methodologies, but I just want to bring back to the forefront synchronous versus asynchronous methods. There's a variety of different methodologies that you can use and presentation methods that we'll talk about here shortly that you can also integrate into your classrooms. Another thing that you can use are web-based training. You can do things like videos. You can do a PowerPoint video if you're adept in PowerPoint. You can use things like Powtoons, which is free online, which gives you you can animate it that way as well. You can also animate PowerPoint, but I think Powtoons is a little bit easier. If your district will invest and you have Articulate, you can use that. You can use Adobe Captivate. There are a lot of tools out there that do have Articulate, and Articulate is an add-on to PowerPoint, so I don't know how much of a learning curve, but there's certainly a learning curve with some of these tools that you would have to get yourself up to speed with. But just varying some of the ways that you introduce materials and discussions and information to your students. My second tip is to get your learners involved. So when you start the school year and you set your expectations and the framework for your class and how things are going to go based on the modifications from COVID-19, that's also a good time to kind of get them engaged in the process and see what their thoughts are. I always have my learners give me to help me set expectations. What do they expect to get out of it? So depending on the age group of your learners, and I'm really thinking more, I don't even know if they call it junior high anymore or middle school, because in my former district that I grew up in, they changed the junior high to the middle school. So, whether or not you're talking about, I would say probably 7th grade up, you can have them tell you what their thoughts are and how you think you can navigate the year. I've always been a strong proponent of, if you have fun, like Vegas, though I've never been to Vegas, but if you have fun, then you are more apt to retain the information if you are engaged. And I think part of getting my participants engaged is to see, what do they come for? What do they expect to learn? How will they contribute to the learning environment and the atmosphere? And so once I give them that opportunity, which is a principle of an adult learner, that they feel valued and respected and they can bring something to the table, I find that with my teenage daughter, she often wants to be able to bring something to the table. She has thoughts, she has opinions, she has feelings. And while all of them may not work for your class or your structure, some of them may. You never know, but at least it makes them feel like they're a partner in your success for the academic school year with the COVID-19, modifications that are going to be necessary. So that's another thing, is to have your learners help you set expectations. And that way you also get buy-in. And so early on, if you get buy-in to this commitment that we're going to navigate these waters together, and that I don't have all the answers, and we're going to try some things that may work, we're going to try some things that won't work, but together we're going to navigate this. If they know that it's a partnership, they'll be more apt to kind of link arms with you and move forward and see it more as an adventure than, getting the short end of the stick. And I've seen a lot of districts, as it relates to graduations and all of that, who have really done some exceptional things like drive-in graduations and going door to door to give, personally delivering caps and gowns. And I've seen districts really come up with some things that I think should remain beyond COVID, that give a personal touch, that let parents and most importantly students know that they care and they're with them in this, and that that they haven't lost touch. And so I think that some of these things you may decide to institute going forward in your curriculum and how you structure your class. My third tip is to vary your presentation methods. Now I'm going to look down because I've got this, and again, I'm going to give you a checklist. But this right here is one of my great cheat sheets over my career that outlines 50 different instructional methods. So I'll just tell you this, that when I design a curriculum and I design a course, I design it with 1/3, 2/3. I'm a certified instructional designer from Longevin Learning Services, the largest learning company in the nation. And I've been doing that for over 20 years. And what that simply means is 1/3 of your time should be, and you present the information, but 2/3 of the time should be application. So that way you break up the monotony. You're not always talking at someone or to someone, but you're giving them information and then they're applying it. And this also speaks to different learning styles. Some people learn just by listening. And, a lot of you already know this. Some people learn by doing. Some people learn by a combination. So some people learn by seeing it. So this way you meet all the learning needs. And especially when you can't put your hands on people and you can't necessarily, I spend a lot of time looking at nonverbals. I can tell, I've been doing it long enough, I'm sure you can too, that I can look at someone and see if they're lost, they don't get it, they haven't quite figured it out. And at the same token, when their face lights up and the aha moment, I also see that as well. That's one of my favorite times. And that's what's kept me in this for so long. So, but back to our instructional methods. So I just want to say this. If you're a big lecturer, you're going to lose some people. Because again, we're going back to learning styles. A lecture and a lecturette are basically the same thing. So what I like to do, especially when I was an adjunct professor at an area community college, because I had some high school students who were enrolled in my class too for their post-secondary program where they were going to high school and then also going to college, and those credits could be earned in either area, either for high school and or college. And so I had a lot of high school students too that, were not as familiar with getting a syllabus and being on their own and not having me hold their hand and explain, every nuance, but having them to, do some thinking on their own and come back to me to synthesize information. So that was kind of new for them. But what I did, because I'm not big at, not that you could tell from this here video, but I'm not big on lecturing to people. You lose a lot of people that way. And as a facilitator, I facilitate the journey. I facilitate the learning journey. So that means that I am just there to help you move through it and to assist you when you're challenged. I would say, as you vary your presentation methods, to use other things beyond lectures. Like one of my favorite things to do is a teach back. And so if I go over something or I assign reading, you can bet on a good occasion that I'm going to come back in the next day and say, or the next time the class meets and say, hey, what did you think about chapter such and such? And they'll give me some cursory response. I know everybody did their reading, right? And they all shake their head yes. And I'll say, okay, pick a number between 1 and such, or I'll number them off. In some way, I'll divide the class up. And when I do that, I'm going to tell them you are responsible for pages 1 through 10. The next group is from 10 through 20. The next group is 20 through 30. And you are responsible for teaching that information back to me. I love that. It gives them an opportunity to, 1, read the information, because 9 times out of 10, they have not read it. 2, then read it for understanding and synthesize the information. 3, write it out or provide, because they must provide some type of application when they teach it back to the class, which further sinks this information down into the little brains. And then 2, then everyone must play a role. I don't determine what that role is, but you must help your team and participate with teaching it back to me and the rest of the class. I absolutely love teach backs. It's one of my favorite. Now, a lot of trainers like role plays, and yeah, I like role plays too, but role plays can be played out when you do too many of them. I like neighbor discussions. I like case studies. Those are all ways that you can present information. You don't always have to be talking at your students. And again, with things that are more hands-on, like math and formulas and science and things of that nature, I don't know. That's just the truth. But I'm sure there's some math case studies for you brilliant people out there. I was never brilliant in math. Practice exercises. I love a good Jeopardy game. I know that you guys do too. I love anything where you can, again, have a little bit of fun, take things not so seriously, and then just let the magic happen in learning. So that's my third tip. Okay, my fourth tip is to break up the monotony. So people have been at home for some time, and people are going to be at home. We're still in the first phase, and we're spiking again. So this is probably, I dare say it, our new normal. So by the time the kids get back to school, they're going to be like fatigued, just overwhelmed by what is our situation between COVID-19 and just the climate that they deal with on a day-to-day basis, with the protests and other things. I just think it's going to be a place where you're going to find that it's easier than normal for folks to tap out, because people need to kind of tap out. And I say, why not take that and put it into your curriculum and provide opportunities for brain breaks? Yeah, that's what I call them, brain breaks. We're not going to think right now. Right now, we're going to have a little fun, whether it be a puzzle, which still works their brain, riddles, same, or, games. You can use gaming, however you come up with it, a modified, dare I say, icebreaker. I am a trainer. Anything of that nature that kind of gives them an opportunity to rest their minds for a second, have some fun, and we're talking about like 10-minute brain breaks, 8-minute brain breaks. Let's just break away for a second and then refresh and come right back at it. We're going to need some opportunities to let loose and, just let our hair down and let our cares just float away for a moment. And you can provide that. You can provide an environment where your students are looking forward to logging into your class. Believe it or not, that is possible. Right now, my daughter talks to one of her former teachers, and they have meetings set up, and she does not miss that meeting. She loves to talk to this teacher. You can be one of those people, one of those teachers that, your kids are talking about you when they're offline, or when they're not in the school, or they're talking about how you impact them. This is the time to be creative, to, again, think outside the box, to talk to some of your colleagues, to talk to people in other arenas, such as myself and other trainers, and say, how do you do it? I have this. How would you develop this curriculum? What would that look like? This is the time to do that. My fifth and final tip is respect each other's time by staying on task. That is everywhere. I just see that even in meetings. I am the type of person that I start my training classes start on time and they end on time. That is my contract with my participants. That was my contract with my students. We start on time, we end on time. Even when I sub, if you're not in here by the time the bell rings, I don't know what to tell you, because the bell is a part of the contract. You start on time, and when the bell rings, I'm gonna let you leave. I won't hold you, because you've spent your time with me. So stay on task as much as you can by giving the adequate time to your presentation and your applications or your exercises and all of those things. If things get to be long-winded, you can always say that's something we can talk about offline. That's why you can have your office hours, or you can do things through email, or your discussion groups, or your group pages where maybe more than one student is having this issue, and you can bring them together, or you can answer the same question at one time and take the time to really look at all the nuances of the problem, so that you can, answer every part of it. You can be clear in it. So those are my tips. I'd love to hear yours. What can I say? We're all in this together. And as I sat as a parent, I thought about that. I thought these are some things that may help, consistency, whatever time your class is and whatever days your class meets, it should be that time and on those days every single time. You know, we need, and our kids, and my mother would say this all the time about her students, that they needed parameters, they needed structure, and that's what made them feel loved, like you cared about them because you had structure. And I know that was one thing that my daughter always said when I questioned her, like, why are you sleeping until 1 o'clock? Where did you have to log in today? Did I hear your alarm go off? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Charlie's mom and the Peanuts, wah, 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 wah. Because I'm trying to let her to give her autonomy, but I'm still a parent. I still want to make sure that I keep her on the correct path. But teachers, I'm going to need your help in that too. I need you all to be consistent. I need you to have a game plan. And I need for you to, if you don't and you have no idea, I need you to talk to your districts, and your in-service needs to be around developing curriculum for blended learning, distance learning. You need some technology training, whatever it is. I need you to ask for it so that you can be prepared in the fall for our kids.